This is a video I've been meaning to do for a while. I wanted to point out the mistakes I believe I made during this build. So the very first one right at the top there is building versus buying. Now, I can tell you from the outset, you are not going to save money by building yourself. I think this build has cost me about 13,000 if I exclude some of the accessory stuff like the AIM Solo. I think the car has cost me about 13,000 to build. You can buy a car for 13 and a half, definitely. There's some on sale right now on Race Car Direct, so you're not going to save money, I can tell you. And that's just the parts for the car, aside from the obvious amount of labour you're going to have to put in. There's also the amount of equipment I've had to buy. So I guess if you're in the trade, it's probably not so bad. But I've had to buy everything from axle stands to a new trolley jack. I bought a hydraulic press. I bought 2 different sets of bush extraction tools. You know, it goes on and on. So I've probably spent about £1,200 on equipment as well. So you know, you've got to take these things into account. So that's the first thing. In my case, I did want to build it. I built a car before. I wanted to prove to myself that I could build it again. A bit pathetic, really, but there you go. That's what I wanted to do. The second thing I've got up here is buying an M Sport. I hadn't really appreciated what hassle that would give me. And you know, I thought, oh, I'll take the rear anti-roll bar off. I'll take off the strut braces. You know, okay, I've got the bumpers to do. But honestly, now the thought of I've got the car all together and now I've got to take the bumpers off, take the side skirts off. I can't find them in matching colours because this is a sort of, seems to be an M Sport colour. So I've then got to decide, am I going to have 2 different colours on the car? Am I going to have the car wrapped? Yeah, that was a big mistake, really was. I paid 16, you might remember this from the first video, I think I paid 1,650 for the car, or 1,600. That was pricey at the time, probably not now. If you look at the prices of them now, they seem to have gone up a heck of a lot. I suspected when I bought the car that the engine in it was good. It turns out that at least on that point I was vindicated. It had the timing chain done on it. I ran compression tests on it recently. You can see the results there. 13.5 more or less across the board on a cold engine, dry. So sorry, that's 13.5 bar, about 200 psi. The minimum recommended is 10 bar by in the Haynes manual I have. So I think the engine's sound. I have got this noisy transmission problem that lots of these cars seem to have. I'm beginning to suspect that it's the bearing in the end of the crankshaft, the one, the spigot bearing, where the gearbox input shaft goes in. And actually, I've got that down here as one of the mistakes I made. When I had the gearbox out, I should have replaced the input shaft bearing. That was a bit stupid. Next one I've got up here, which I wish I hadn't have done this, and I made this mistake recently. When Rob at 4040 said, do you want your roll cage powder coated before I put it in? I said no. Boy, that is a big mistake. I've tried to paint it in situ. It's almost impossible. You just cannot get in all the angles. It's a pain. You're worried about dropping paint all over the dashboard. Yeah, that was a mistake for, you know, £200 I think it was to have the roll cage powder coated. Yeah, should have done that. I should have stripped the whole car out and painted it. I've been painting it bit by bit. That's not a massive mistake, but quite honestly, I could have made my life much easier. Installing the bushes in the rear suspension are an almighty pain in the neck, I can tell you. And one of the mistakes I made was I should have bought a press at the start. So I've got this press here. I think it cost me about £180 £5. It's a Sealy, as you can see, 5.4 ton press. My life would have been much easier had I bought that from the outset. Instead, I struggled on with all manner of bush extraction tools to both extract the bushes and to pull the new ones in place. And I think I could have saved myself time, pain, and possibly some damage, which I'll come on to in a minute, if I had used a press from the outset. Yeah, you've probably seen my videos from way back where I forced the jam bolts in the rear subframe, which you've got there, as a mistake. I mean, that's just schoolboy error. Why on earth did I do that? I was getting really frustrated that I could not get the subframe in, and in the end, I started to pull the bolts up with a brake bar. I must have been mad. I don't know. It's just one of those things. You got to try and step back and keep your cool, and not be tempted to go that route, because that just caused, well, the jam bolts. Quite honestly, the jam bolts on this in that rear subframe could have cost me the whole shell. I know that sounds like a massive exaggeration, but the bolts go up into some sort of threaded sleeve things which end just here. And to get them out, you literally have to cut the subframe out. You have to cut underneath. You've then got to get it all lined up perfectly, because the bolts will only go in a particular position. I have seen people who have replaced them, not on this car, on another car, but on another model. But yeah, quite honestly, I'm not sure I would have wanted to take it on. You need to do a lot of welding. You need to cut bits off of other cars. I think it would have been the end of this shell. Luckily, I managed to recover. And you can see in my former videos how I recovered, but that could have been such a costly mistake. You know, if it had been anything else, it's just that it was those particular bolts. When I was installing the bushes, the rear bushes in the rear subframe, you have to put an almighty force through the bushes using the extraction tools, the bush tools that I had. In fact, I broke one of the bars doing it. I personally, actually, I don't think I'd use those. Strong Flex say, I did speak to someone at Strong Flex, and they did say they were going to change them for a two-part bush. So you could just install them top and bottom, just like you do the front bushes on the rear subframe. If they haven't switched to that sort of technique by the time you come to do it, at least for those bushes, I'd go for poly bushes and don't use the Strong Flex ones, because the poly bushes come in two parts, I believe. That was, I have a feeling that in combination with the fact that I didn't put packing between the two split parts of the subframe. So as I forced the bush through, I was actually compressing the subframe. I did that on one side. It only caused a movement of about 1.5 mil. But you just don't want it. You can do without it. On the other side, where I packed it out, I didn't get any movement at all, and that all worked. So if you are going to use those one-piece Strong Flex bushes, then make sure where you've got the two halves, the top and bottom half of the subframe, put some form of packing between there so it doesn't compress as you're jamming, you know, as you're really driving those bushes through the subframe. A mistake I think I made up front, what I did make, was I thought, I just need to buy the 116 trophy kit. I'll buy everything. And I did. I literally bought everything on the list. That became a big storage problem. And in fact, I ended up having the roll cage was still up at Sean Gosling's factory. I then had to have it moved. Yeah, that was a mistake. Just try and plan it and use buy the parts as you need them. I know it's exciting to get a big shipment of parts, but that became a bit of a problem. And I've got quite a big double garage here, as you can see, and I was really struggling to store all the parts. The next point I would raise is I would get an MOT on the car before you start ripping it apart. If you want to keep it roadworthy or road legal. I found the problem I had was I had the car in pieces. I wanted to get an MOT on it, but I literally had to complete the car, almost complete the whole car before I got the MOT. I wouldn't do that if I was you. I'd get it MOT'd as soon as you get the car, so you've got a fresh MOT, so you've got 12 months of MOT already, and then start pulling the car apart. And my final one, which was a big mistake I made, was I tried to construct a spray booth out of hanging paper in the corner of my garage. And I, like an idiot, it was last winter, I decided that I wanted to keep it warm in there. So I put a fan heater on the bottom, sort of pointing into the spray booth. Then I tried to spray the subframe and the overspray went everywhere. I had it all over the car. In fact, I don't know whether you probably can't see this, but this charging unit on the wall has still got a slight pink tinge to it, to the top part of it. It just went everywhere. And I had to, in the end, I had to T-cut the whole car to get the flipping overspray off. I had it over my bench, over my radio stuff. It was everywhere. So if I was you, I wouldn't even entertain spraying in your garage. Oh, and then I did I tried to do a repair on the side of the car, just here. The repair came out okay, actually. I sprayed it. I had some, it was over here. I mean, it's not brilliant, but it's tidy. But the flipping aerosol can more or less exploded on me. It had a fault on the aerosol spray lid, and all of the primer shot out the side of the can and went all over my garage floor, and I can't get it off. I've tried. So I'm stuck with that. So that's a bit of a problem. Spraying is not great. So I think that's it. I hope that helps you in your build. I don't want to put you off, but if you are determined to build your own, then just pay heed to some of these points I've raised here.